Today, let's study chapter Control and Coordination from the Biology, Part 1. So, here we can study about the nervous system, neuron, reflex action, reflex arc, also parts of the brain. Control and coordination refer to how living organisms regulate their activity and respond to change. So, what is control and coordination? How the living organism can regulate their day-to-day activity. Also, how can they respond to change in the environment? Okay. So, 2 point, how living organisms regulate their activity as well as how they can respond to changes. These two are collectively called as a control and coordination. We had started with a notion we all have that if we see something moving, it is alive. So, that's the basic concept. Anything that moves is live. Some of these movements are in fact the result of growth, as in plants. So, in the plants, even though we can see them actively moving, there is some type of movement. So, we say the plants are living things. A seed germinates and grows, and we can see that the seedling moves, of course, over the course of few days. It pushes soil aside and comes out. Okay, so in the case of a seed, we are burying a seed, putting water, and what happens? The seed will germinate and it will sprout and it pushes the soil aside and it comes out after a few days, right? So that means the seed germination and growing, there is also some sort of movement. But if its growth were to be stopped, this movement would not happen. So if it is not growing, then what happened? That is literally it is dead. Means there is no movement happening. Some movements, as in many animals and some plants, are not connected with the growth. But we can say all the movements in the animals and plants are growth. Some are related with the growth, some are not at all connected with growth. A cat running, children playing on swings, buffalo chewing cud. These all are movements, but these are not growth movement, right? Why do we associate such visible movement with life? A possible answer is that we think of movement as a response to a change in environment of the organism. Okay, so we think of the movement. What? It is a change to the response. Sorry, a response to a change in the environment of the organism. For example, why the cat is running? Cat is running maybe because it saw a mouse. So that is not a sort of type of growth. And buffalo chewing the cud. It is also not a growth, but it is enjoying the food. Then the playing, children playing on the swing. That is also a type of entertainment, not as a part of the growth. So these all are response to a change in the environment of an organism. Not only that, we also think of movement as an attempt by living organism to use the change in the environmental to their advantage. Okay, so that is also a change in environment. So movement is, one is growth, other is the response. Also, there is a change in the environment. So plants grow to sunshine. Why the plant is growing? Grows out into the sunshine. It is growing. Children trying to get pleasure. So all these movements, the children trying to get pleasure and fun out of swinging. So why they are swinging? Because it is a pleasure and fun. Buffalo chew cud to help break up the tough food to able to digest it better. Cat may be running because it has seen a mouse. So these all movement to be depend on the event that is triggering. So something is triggering. So when a child is see a sing, child want to play. When a cat see a mouse, the cat is running to chase it. So such control movement must be connected to the recognition of various events in the environment, following by only the correct movement in response. So in all all these are triggered, there will be a correct movement in response to all these events in the environment. When bright light is focused on our eyes, what happens? We close our eyes. When we touch a hot object, we withdraw our hand, right? So we detect the change and respond to it with the movement in order to protect ourselves. So why we are shutting our eyes or why we are withdrawing our hands when we touch a hot object? It is a movement, it is done in order to protect ourselves. That is a response to a change, right? If we think a bit more about this, it becomes apparent that all this movement in response to the environment is carefully controlled. Each kind of a change in the environment evoke an appropriate movement in response. So, how we are responding to this? By a movement. In other words, living organism must use system providing control and coordination. In keeping with the general principle of body organization in multicellular organism, specialized tissues are used to provide this control and coordination activity. So, living organism must use all this system throughout the body to control and coordination. How this control and coordination is done? It is by using specialized tissue in this systems, right? The specialized tissues are used to provide this control and coordination activity. So all these are intro like that is given in your textbook. Now next, stimuli and responses. A stimulus is any change in the internal or external environment of an organism that can be detected. So what is stimulus? Stimulus means any change in there is an internal environment for us, right? There is an external environment is there also. So if there is any change to that, if it is too hot or too cold, so all those, so there is a change in the environment. So any change in the environment, internal and external environment, if an organism detect, that is called as a stimulus. A stimulus is any change in the internal or external environment of an organism that can be detected. This change may include light, heat, sound, pressure, chemicals, or change inside the body such as hunger hormone level. All this change. So we respond to light, we respond to heat, we respond to sound, we respond to change inside the hormone. For example, when we are hungry. Okay, so all these things we are responding. And all of this is causing a change in our body. So any change in the internal or external environment of an organism that can be detected is called as a stimulus. So what happens? So there is a stimulus. What will be the next stage? It is a response. So action to the stimulus is a response. Response is the action or reaction shown by an organism after detecting a stimulus. So when we are going to touch a hot object, what happens? There is a stimuli. Heat is the stimulus. So what we do? We respond by withdrawing our hand. When there is a fearful situation, what we do? Fearful situation is the stimulus. What we do? We fight or flight. Fight or flight is the response. So response is the action or reaction shown by the organism after detecting a stimulus. Even in the plants, you know, touch me not plant. What is the stimulus? Touch is the stimulus. What it happen? All the leaves will droop. Okay, all the leaves will close. So stimulus means any change in the environment, and response means it is action or reaction. So response help the organism to adjust to their surrounding, protect themselves from danger, also maintain the normal body function. For example, sweating in hot weather. Hot weather. So hot weather is a stimulus. So we have to adjust to the surrounding. How we respond? We respond by sweating. This sweating protect us from the overheating now and maintain the normal body temperature. So the response help the organism to adjust to surrounding, protect from danger, also maintain the normal body function. Also pulling a hand away from hot object. If we do not pull, what happen? Our hand gets burned, right? So response help organism to adjust to their surrounding, protect themselves from danger, as well as maintain the normal body functions. Okay, so sweating in case of the hot weather. When we are touching the hot object, when we are touching, we easily withdraw. That is the stimulus and the response. Now, coordination is the process by which different organ and body system work together in a controlled and organized manner to produce an effective response to a stimulus. So, coordination means our body has many organs. All of these organs work together and it is in a controlled, organized manner. They have an organized, controlled manner. Why? To product an effective response to a stimulus. So coordination is a process by which different organs and body system work together in a controlled, organized manner to produce an effective response to a stimulus. It ensures that the response is timely, accurate, beneficial for the organism's survival. So, it is a controlled, coordinated, organized manner, and it is timely. The response should be timely, accurate, beneficial for the organism's survival. Why? If it is not timely, accurate, if the if the person touching a hot object is standing like that, what happens? He will get burned. So, there should be a timely, accurate response, and it should be beneficial for the organism's survival. Now, next is nervous system. So, in animals, such control and coordination provided by the nervous and the muscular tissue. So, mainly the nervous system and the muscular system is helping this control and coordination in the animals. Touching a hot object is an urgent, dangerous situation for us. We need to detect it and respond to it. How do we detect that we are touching a hot object? How we know? When we see a hot object, how we know it is a hot object and we should not touch? All information from our environment is detected by the specialized tip of some nerve cell. Some specialized tip of the nerve cells are there. These help to detect about the information about the environment. These receptors are usually located in our sense organ. So, which are the sense organ? Our ear, nose, eyes, tongue, skin. All these are sense organ, and this sense organ has some receptor, and they have the specialized tip. Okay, of some nerve cell. So, for example, gustatory receptors in our tongue. That receptor, specialized receptor, will detect the taste. Olfactory receptors in the nose detect the smell. So, let's see what are receptors and effectors. Receptors are the specialized cell of the sense organ that detect the specific stimuli. Example, such as the light, heat, pain, or sound. So, receptor are actually sensory organ or even the specialized cell. They can detect the specific stimuli. For example, light. How we can detect the light? Using our eye. So the eye has the specialized cell to detect the light, stimuli light. Heat by skin, pain, skin, sound, ear. So the receptors means they are the specialized cells of the sense organ that can detect the specific stimuli. So these are some receptor. So I told light. Light is photoreceptor. The sense organ is eye, stimulus light. Stimuli smell. How we can detect? Through nose. Nose has which receptor? Olfactory receptor. Taste. Tongue. The receptor is gustatory receptor. Sound through ear. Phonoreceptor. Heat or cold. It is through skin. Thermoreceptor related with the temperature. Pain, skin, nociceptor. So these are the different types of receptors in our sense organ. They respond according to the stimuli. Now what about the effector? So these are what receptor? They are receiving. Now when we are viewing, then there should be a response. So what is the response? Responses through effector. What are the effector? The muscle or gland that act in response to a stimulus. So the light is a stimulus and there should be a response. And who respond to this? The effector. There are muscle or glands that act in response to a stimulus received from the nervous system, carry out the response by producing movement or secretion. So we already saw when we are viewing, there is light. The light is passing through the cornea and reaching through the lens, then reaching the retina. From retina, where it goes? It is going to the optic nerve, through the optic nerve to the brain, right? So in the brain, there will be some, this brain is a part of the nervous system. So there is some then the brain is analyzing and giving an image, right? So in the that is in the case of the vision, when viewing an image. But if it is a stimuli, what happens? Stimuli, when there is a stimulus, for example, there is a frightful or fearful situation, then what happens? There these are the stimulus is received by the receptor. And the receptor, what does? Receptor accept this, and in response this is going to the brain, and from the brain it is going to the effector. Here it is muscles, and what muscles or glands, then what happens? They carry out the response by producing movement or secretion. So if it is in the case of muscle, for example skeletal muscle, what will be the action? Running. But if it is in the gland, they will produce some enzymes or hormones, and they produce, that is they produce some secretions called hormone. So effectors are muscles or glands. So muscle, for example the skeletal muscle, an action called running, running, walking, like that. In case of the gland, what will be the response? It will produce secretions, hormone. So effectors are the muscles or gland, and they act in response to a stimulus received from the nervous system. So from the nervous system, they are the effectors, that is a muscle or glands, are receiving the stimulus from the nervous system, and they are carrying out the response by producing movement or the secretion. Hope this is clear for you. The effectors are muscles or glands, act in response to a stimulus. This stimulus is received from the nervous system, and these effectors carry out the response by producing movement or secretion. Now, an activity in the textbook. Put some sugar in your mouth. How does it taste? You know, when we put sugar, it is sweet in taste. And block your nose by pressing it between your thumb and index finger. Again, you put the sugar. Is there any difference? No. Why? Because the sugar is received by whom? It is received by the gustatory receptors in the tongue. Okay, so what is the function of the gustatory receptor? Gustatory receptor function is to identify the taste. So there is no difference in the taste. The nose, we have the smell. That is the olfactory receptor. But this taste is not related with the olfactory. So here, even if we block our nose, we will get the taste because due to the gustatory receptor. So chemical receptors of our body that perceive the taste stimulus are called the gustatoreceptor. Gustatoreceptors are present in our tongue. When they are stimulated by chemical, here it is sugar, they convey the information to the sensory area in the brain. In the brain, the information is interpreted. We come to know about the taste of the food. When sugar is eaten, we feel the taste of the sugar due to activation of the gustatoreceptor. In the next part, we feel the taste of the sugar even after blocking our nose because the taste of the sugar is not affected by the receptor of the smell situated in the nose. Why? The taste, we have a different receptor for the taste and different for the smell. But here, this is sugar, there is no smell, but it is taste is the main stimulus there, right? So responses, we are knowing the taste by gustatoreceptor. While eating lunch, block your nose in the same way. Notice if you can fully appreciate the taste of the food you are eating. So sugar means there is no smell. But in the case of the lunch, there will be special aroma also. That will be more pleasing, right? So if there is any difference in how sugar and food taste if your nose is blocked. Generally, as soon as we open our lunch box, the smell of the food is detected by the olfactory receptor of nose. So here we have the olfactory receptors also in the main role. Okay, our mouth starts some salivation before the food reaches our mouth. Really. So when we are seeing the lunch, and if it is very much our favorite also, it will start mountain. Even though when we see food, there will slight salivation. When we eat food, its chemicals spread in the large area of the tongue. There is salivation. And the taste is a function, actually the taste is a function of both gustatoreceptor and olfactory receptor. Taste is often enhanced by the receptor of smell, especially the taste of the hot aromatic substance, right? But sugar, by seeing sugar and all, we don't have, or sugar doesn't have any smell. But in case of the lunch, the smell is also an important factor there. Even the smell causes some salivation in our mouth plus the taste reception. It means taste perception is helped by receptors of smell also. Okay. If the nose is blocked by the thumb and index finger, we partially appreciate the taste of the food. Because why? The part or component of food which can be felt by taste receptor, that is a gustato receptor, is appreciated. Taste is not fully appreciated. Why? Because the olfactory component is absent there. We get only the gustatory component. Okay, hope this is clear for you. So when we are putting a sugar, we fail the taste because due to gustato receptor. When we block our nose, still we taste the sugar, we get the sugar taste. But if we are eating a lunch and if we are blocking the nose, we can't appreciate the lunch much because there the olfactory component is absent, only the gustatory component is there. So in case of the lunch, the gustato plus olfactory is working there. Even if the lunch is appealing, even our visual sense is also working there, right? If it is very beautiful and all, and if it is very juicy, if it is very attractive, so all these receptors are working together. So in case of sugar, only gustato receptor, but in case of lunch, both gustato, olfactory, and some sort vision is also important there. Clear? So this is about the receptor. Now next is about the nervous system. Nervous system function is control and coordinate the body action through brain, spinal cord and nerves. So three important parts we can say. It is the brain, spinal cord and the nerve. So nervous system control and coordinate the body. And it sends, receive, process messages as chemical signal or impulse. So how it receive the messages? As chemical signal. We call it impulse. It also sends the chemical signal. It also process it. So there are three functions: send, receive as well as process. So it can send and also process. Structure. It is composed of a network of nerve cells called neuron that transmits the information via electrical impulse. So the main part of the nervous system is the nerve cell called as the neuron, and the neuron transmit the information. How they can transmit? As we send through text message or WhatsApp, like that. How the nervous system sends the message? Using electrical impulse. So the term is electrical impulse. Nerve cell or neuron. Nervous tissue is made up of an organized network of nerve cell or neuron. So the body's instant message network is the neuron. It is an organized network of nerve cell. And this is structure. So this is the dendrite and cell body. Cell body has the nucleus. Then elongated part is the axon. A neuron is the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system, and it is the longest cell in the body. Neuron carry messages as electrical impulse. Nervous tissue is specialized for conducting information via electrical impulse from one part of the body to another. We already told they are conducting the information using the electrical impulse. And nerve is a bundle of the nerve fiber transmitting signal between the brain and the body parts. Parts of a neuron. Dendrites. So dendrites, this portion, is a branched projection that receive the signal. So the branched portion is called the dendrite, and it is the one who receive the signal, receive the information or receive signal. The part is called the dendrite. Now next is the cell body. This is the cell body, and cell body has the nucleus. Nucleus process the receive impulse. So through the dendrite it is receiving the information, and the processing center is the nucleus. Now axon. What do the axon do? It is a long process, and here the nucleus has processed this, and this processed signal is sent the signal away from the cell body, or it transmit the impulse away from the cell body. So dendrite reaches the impulse, that is the electrical signal, and through the cell body this is reaching the nucleus. Nucleus is processing it, and from the nucleus it is going to the axon. Axon is transmitting the impulse away from the cell body. Then last is the nerve endings. At it release. So in response to this message, impulse, what happened? The nerve endings release the neurotransmitter, a chemical called the neurotransmitters. So the neuron has the dendrite, cell body has the nucleus, and then the axon. Synapse. Synapse is a microscopic gap between two neurons. So two neurons have a small microscopic gap, that is called the synapse, and it transmits the electrical impulse from one neuron to another. So how this how this electrical impulse is passing? It is passing through synapse. It is through this synapse. This electrical impulses are transmitted from one neuron to another. The chemical called the neurotransmitter cross the synapse. They generate a new electrical impulse in the next neuron dendrite. So, in the synapse, so from the dendrite, this is incoming signal. A signal is coming to the dendrite. From the dendrite, it is reaching cell body. From cell body to the nucleus. Nucleus is processing, and this processed message is passed to the axon. And from the axon, it is going to the nerve ending. And the nerve ending, what happened? It releases a chemical called the neurotransmitter, and this neurotransmitter crosses the synapse, and as a result a new electrical impulse is generated in next neuron's dendrite. Clear? So information acquired at the end of the dendritic tip of the nerve cell set off a chemical reaction, and it creates an electrical impulse. This impulse travels from the dendrite to the cell body and then along the axon. At the end of the axon, the electrical impulse set off the release of some chemical, that is a chemical called the neurotransmitter, and the neurotransmitter cross the gap or the synapse and start a similar electrical impulse in a dendrite of the next neuron, and this is the general scheme of how nervous impulse travel in the body. Clear? A similar synapse finally allow delivery of such impulse from neuron to other cell, such as muscle cell or gland. So, not only the nervous system, it is also sending to the muscle cell or gland, that is the effectors. Okay. So, nerve impulse transmission, I already told. The receiving signal, electrical impulse, new signal, it is going on. Reflex action. What happens in the reflex action? Reflex is a word we use very commonly when we talk about some sudden action in response to something in the environment. Okay, so reflex. Reflex is a word when we use very commonly when we talk about some sudden action. So reflex means sudden action. We told there will be an action to the stimulus, but the sudden action we call it as reflex. Reflex action is a sudden, quick, involuntary movement, not involving conscious thought. So here we are not consciously doing this. This is sudden, quick, involuntary movement. Involuntary movements means the moment we are not initiating consciously. We are doing. That is the reflex action. Why we are doing the reflex action? Because it protects the body by providing a rapid reaction. So reflex action is a sudden, quick, involuntary movement, and it is not involving the conscious thought. So the same example, when we touch the heat, the brain says move instantly. Okay, so that is a super fast reaction. We say, I jumped out of the way of the bus reflexly. Suddenly we are jumping out of the bus, out of the way of the bus. Why? If we are not moving, the bus will go through us. I pulled my hand back from the flame reflexly, otherwise our hand will get burned. I was so hungry, my mouth started watering reflexly. So that is a reaction, right? So a common idea in all such examples is that we do something without thinking about it or without feeling in control of a reaction. So we are doing something suddenly without thinking or without feeling in control of our reaction. Yet this is a situation where we are responding with some action to change. But there are also some situations we respond by thinking. Is control and coordination achieved in such situation? Let us consider this. Take one of our example. Touching a flame is an urgent and dangerous situation for us, or in fact for any animal. How would we respond to this? One seemingly simple way is to think consciously about the pain and the possibility of the get burned, and therefore move our hand. An important question then is, how long will it take us to think all this? Answer depends on how we think. Right. If we are when we are touching and thinking, then our hand will be burned. So it should have done within a microsecond. If now impulses are sent around the way we have talked about earlier, then thinking is also likely to involve the creation of such impulse. So even the thinking also should involve such impulses. Thinking is a complex activity, so it is bound to involve a complicated interaction of many nerve impulses from many neurons. If this is the case, it is no surprise that the thinking tissue in our body consists of dense network of intricately arranged neurons. So even the thinking tissue, that is also consists of the neuron. It sits in the forward end of the skull and receives signal from all over the body, which it think about before responding to them. So for thinking, where should be this? This is in the brain, in the forward part of the skull. That is in the forward part of the brain. It receives signal from all over the body, which it think about before responding to them. Obviously, in order to receive this signal, this thinking part of the brain in the skull must be connected to the nerve coming from various part of the body. So types of neuron, we can say there are different types. One is sensory neuron. It carry impulse from receptor, that is from the sense organ to the central nervous system. So the neuron which carry the impulse from the sense organ to the brain or the central nervous system. Central nervous system is brain and spinal cord, is called the sensory neuron. So when we get an impulse, when we get a stimulus, when we get a stimulus, what happened? There will be an impulse. This impulse should be transported from the sensory organ or the receptors to the central nervous system through sensory neuron. And motor neuron. Motor neuron means it carry impulse from the CNS to the effector. To the effector means muscle or gland. To the last part, which one carry? The neuron, that is a motor neuron, carry impulse from the CNS to the effectors. Relay neuron or interneuron, there is an intermediate, that is transmit signal between the sensory neuron and motor neuron. Sensory and motor neuron, in between there is a neuron that is a transmitting signal, and that is called the relay neuron or the interneuron. Similarly, if this part of the brain is to instruct the muscle to move, nerves must carry the signal back to different part of the body. So from the CNS, it should carry to different part. This message should go to different parts of the body. If all of this is to be done when we touch a hot object, it may take enough time for us to get burned, right? How does the design of the body solve this problem? Rather than having to think about the sensation of heat, if the nerves that detect the heat were to be connected to the nerves that move muscle in a simple way, the process of detecting the signal or input and responding to it by an output action might be completed quickly. So there is a connection. The connection between we told the sensory neuron, motor neuron, relay neuron, there should be a connection. So the sensory neuron should inform which one? CNS, and the CNS should get the result back to the effector, that is the muscle or the gland, and that connection is called the reflex arc. Okay, so signals. Where should such reflex arc connection be made between input nerve and output nerve? The best place, of course, would be at the point where they first meet each other. So nerve from all over the body meet in a bundle in the spinal cord on their way to brain. So where they are meeting? They are meeting in the spinal cord. So reflex arc are formed in the spinal cord itself. So where is this reflex arc formed? It is formed in the spinal cord itself. Before it is reaching the brain, it is formed in the spinal cord. Although the information input also goes on to reach the brain, before reaching the brain, it is formed in the spinal cord. Okay, so receptor, the reflex arc is symbol image, sensory receptor. It is, for example, in the case of the flame, sensory receptor, it is detecting the pain. There should be pain. So what it happens to send the signal to the spinal cord. From the spinal cord, this motor neuron, the spinal cord, then it reaches the brain. Then the motor neuron sends a command to which one? To the muscle. Okay, to the muscle, move hand. So simple, the three neurons we study. So reflex arc is the pathway nerve impulse follow during a reflex action. So that is the path. How this nerve impulses are passing. the pathway, how they are moving during a reflex action. So reflex action means it is not the normal one, but it is a sudden reaction, right? So how the nerve impulse follow during a reflex action, that is a reflex arc. It involved, so here it is not the mainly the brain, but involve the receptor, sensory neuron, spinal cord. The spinal cord is the interneuron here, motor neuron and effector. So here we don't have the brain. So in the reflex arc, we have the sensory receptor, detect the pain. Sensory neuron, it sends message to whom? Spinal cord. From the spinal cord, it is reaching the motor neuron and then the muscle. So it involves the receptor, the sensory neuron, then spinal cord, that is the interneuron, motor neuron and the effector. So reflex arcs are efficient because they bypass complex brain processing, allowing instant reaction. So in case of emergency, this reflex arc are working. Of course, the reflex arc have evolved in animals because the thinking process of the brain is not fast enough. But the animals, they require quick action or reaction. So the reflex arcs are evolved in the animals. In fact, many animals have very little or none of the complex neural network needed for thinking. They don't have much about the thinking. So it is quite likely that reflex arcs have evolved as efficient ways of functioning in the absence of true thought process. Even though the animals are not thinking much, their reflex arcs have evolved in them. However, even after complex neural networks have come into existence, reflex arcs continue to be more efficient for quick response. Can you know the trace? Now trace the sequence of events which occur when a bright light is focused on your eyes. The same way, no. Next is human brain. Is reflex action the only function of the spinal cord? So here reflex action is related with the spinal cord, no? Obviously not. Since we know that we are thinking being, spinal cord is made up of nerves which supply information to think about. So not only the reflex action, the spinal cord has some nerves related with the thinking also. Thinking involves more complex mechanism and neural connection. These are concentrated in the brain, which is the main coordinating center of the body. So not only spinal cord, the brain is also involved in thinking, and brain is the main coordinating center of the body. So the nervous system, and here human nervous system, we told there is nerves also. So the nervous system, so I told the main part is the central nervous system with the brain, spinal cord and also some nerves. So types of the nervous system. The nervous system is broadly classified into central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system, main part is the brain and the spinal cord, and the central nervous system process information and sends commands. Peripheral nervous system, it include which one? The receptors and the effectors. Peripheral nervous system include all the nerve, not the receptor effector. The peripheral nervous system include all the nerve outside the CNS, outside the central nervous system. What and all nerves are there? That is constitute peripheral nervous system, and its function is to connect the CNS to the receptors and effector. So CNS is where CNS and receptor and effector are connected by using the peripheral nervous system. So, and the peripheral nervous system, there is a division called the somatic and the autonomous. Okay, sorry, the peripheral nervous system, somatic nervous system. Somatic nervous system means it control the, again the peripheral nervous system can be classified into two, somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Okay, so here the central nervous system, it consists of the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system consists of the somatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. And here what we are saying, the somatic nervous system, it controls the voluntary action. We will study what is the voluntary action and all. Involuntary action is controlled by the autonomic nervous system, and autonomic nervous system is again divided into two, the sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic nervous system means involuntary action, prepare the body for stress. Sympathetic means fight, flight and all. Stress, sympathetic, SS. Parasympathetic is calming, sleeping, body, conserve energy and all. So it is broadly nervous system, central nervous system, forget this part, brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is again somatic nervous system, voluntary action, autonomic nervous system, involuntary action, sympathetic and parasympathetic system. The brain and the spinal cord constitute the central nervous system. They receive information from all of the body and integrate it. We also think about our action, writing, talking, moving a chair, clapping at the end of a program. These all are voluntary action. So writing, talking, moving, clapping, these all are we are voluntary doing. We know what we are doing. We think what we should do. Decide what to do next. So all these are related with the voluntary action. So voluntary action you decide. So the brain also has to send message to muscle. This is the second way in which the nervous system communicates with the muscle. So communication between the central nervous system and other part of the body is facilitated by the peripheral nervous system. We already told the peripheral nervous system is connecting central nervous system with the effector and receptor. So the communication between the central nervous system and other part of the body is facilitated by the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system consists of all the nerve outside, right? So peripheral nervous system consists of the cranial nerve arising from the brain and spinal nerve arising from the spinal cord. And the spinal nerves is 31 pair, cranial nerves 12 pair. The brain thus allows us to think, take action based on that thinking, right? So brain allow, we think, and the brain is taking action based on that thinking. As you will expect, this is accomplished through a complex design with different parts of the brain responsible for the integrating different input and output. So many things are there. So there is a complex design for the brain. Again, the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. Brain is again divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So three parts of the brain are forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Forebrain is a region of the brain that is responsible for thinking. So we were talking about the thinking now, thoughts. And who is doing these thoughts? Forebrain. And what are the parts of forebrain? Cerebrum and diencephalon. And cerebrum has four parts: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe and occipital lobe. The forebrain is the main thinking part of the brain. That means it has region which receive the sensory impulse. So the region which receive the sensory impulse from the various receptor, where it is located in the forebrain. What are the parts of forebrain? The cerebrum and diencephalon. Separate areas of the forebrain are specialized for hearing, smell, sight and so on. So I told cerebrum has the four lobes and based on that there are separate area for each of the senses. Memory and intelligence as well as the sense center, that is hearing, smell, sight, all are housed in cerebrum. Okay, so where we get all these things? That is a memory, intelligence and sense center. It is in the cerebrum. So what about the diencephalon? Diencephalon is between the cerebrum and the brainstem and the parts are thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus and subthalamus. Diencephalon help control important function like the, so hypothalamus and all you have heard. So that is related with the hormone release, sensory motor signaling, regulating the sleep cycle. All these are related with the diencephalon. There are separate area of association where the sensory information is interpreted by putting it together with information from other receptor as well as with the information that is already stored in the brain. Based on all this, a decision is made about how to respond and information is passed to motor area which control the movement of the voluntary muscle. For example, our leg muscle. So how to react? There is a decision. Certain sensation are distinct from seeing or hearing. For example, how do we know that we have eaten enough? So that also is a type of sensation that also should be decided. And the next is midbrain. Midbrain connect the forebrain to the hindbrain and regulate the vision, hearing. So we were forebrain we told cerebrum and the diencephalon. Cerebrum is with the sense, memory, intelligence and all. Diencephalon is with the hormone regulation, etc. Midbrain is connecting the forebrain with the hindbrain, regulate the reflex, vision and hearing. Now cerebellum. The hindbrain, the parts are cerebellum, pons and medulla. Cerebellum is responsible for the coordinating muscle action as well as maintaining balanced posture, balance, good posture, coordination. All these are done by the cerebellum. Medulla is in charge of the involuntary function, blood pressure, salivation, vomiting, heart rate, all this involuntary function. What are the involuntary function? These are not our control, right? We can't control our blood pressure, we can't control the vomiting, sensation, heart rate. So all these are done by the medulla oblongata. Spinal cord. Spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column or backbone, and it extends from the medulla of the brain through the entire length of the vertebral column. Now we are going to talk about the motor area controlling the movement of the voluntary muscle. Sensation of feeling full is because of the center associated with the hunger. Right. So we told before how we can know we are full. The sensation of being full is feeling full is because of a center associated with the hunger. Hmm? This is a part of the forebrain. Our mouth water when we see food we like without our meaning to. So our heart beat without our thinking about it. We cannot control this action easily by thinking about them, even if we want. Right? Watering when we see food or heartbeat that we can't control. Do we have to think about or remember to breathe or digest food? If we are holding, how long we can hold? Right? How we can control the digestion? So in between the simple reflex action like the change in size of pupil, when the light comes now, there is a change in size of pupil. The thought out action such as moving a chair, there is another set of muscle movement over which we do not have any thinking control, right? So when we close our eyes or when we are clapping, all these are under our control to some extent, but there are movements that we not under control, for example breathing, digestion, heartbeat, like that. Many of these involuntary action are controlled by the midbrain and the hindbrain. All these involuntary action including the blood pressure, salivation, vomiting are controlled by the medulla in the hindbrain. Think about the activity like walking in a straight line, riding a bicycle, picking up a pencil. These are possible due to a part of the hindbrain called the cerebellum. We told the cerebellum no. So told the two parts cerebellum, coordinating the muscle action, maintaining balanced posture, and medulla. Medulla is in the control of the involuntary action. So again, what is voluntary movement? The conscious intentional action you choose to do. So that is an intention. We are choosing to do. We are choosing to talk. We are choosing walking. We are choosing clapping. This is controlled by the somatic nervous system, utilizing the skeletal muscle to interact with the environment, walking, jumping, talking, like that. That is a voluntary movement. Involuntary movement means autonomic subconscious action because that are happening without thinking. We are not thinking about our heartbeat, we are thinking not about our digestion, or we are not thinking about our breathing and all. Heartbeat, digestion, reflex, even reflex, these are governed by the autonomic nervous system. So voluntary by the somatic and involuntary by the autonomic nervous system. Okay, so here ends our chapter about this. Hope you understood all this factor. So thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, comment and subscribe and my channel. And if any doubt, you can just comment. Thank you.